I Kill Giants is a fantasy drama film about an oddball, independent teenage girl named Barbara who lives with her slacker brother and a supportive older sister. She regularly brings a Norse warhammer to her middle school because she believes she is living in a detailed fantasy world of magic and monsters, inspired by her love of Dungeons and Dragons, in which she is a skilled giant killer. Believing that giant monsters from other worlds are coming to attack her hometown, she spends her days creating weapons and traps in order to fend off the creatures. From the very beginning of the film, when we are introduced to her, we really get the sense that she is quite different from all the people around her. Like during the very first scene of the film, her brother has some friends over and they are playing this sort of violent, loud shooter video game, while she on the other hand would much prefer the old school board game that actually required real human interaction instead of just mindless button pushing. Obviously the boys make fun of her for this, and she, in an act of revenge, actually literally pulls the plug on their game, actually literally pulls it out of the electricity socket. Smart move. The very first time we see her being bullied in school, we can actually see that she is quite capable of holding her ground. She is not the type of dork you want to be messing with. This is the type of person who fights back, who punches back, who yells back. She can definitely hold her ground, and she is definitely not the type of person who accepts being ostracized or ridiculed, or who is willing to be bossed around. On the flip side of things, she doesn't really seem to have any friends, and considering her feisty and rude demeanor, it's really no wonder, and the situation at home seems troubling to say the least. I mean, the older sister really seems to be the only one in the house who is trying to be there for everyone and is trying to take care of everyone else, and this, on Barbara's part, really doesn't seem to be mutual. She really doesn't seem to respect her older sister or care about her all that much. So this is basically our main character, the lone wolf, you know, someone who can definitely handle herself, who is able to fend for herself, and who doesn't let her guard down for anybody, but on the other hand, she also seems to be someone who is desperately trying to avoid any sort of emotional attachment, who really tries to avoid anything that has to do with basic responsibilities. And it's not like she doesn't have her reasons. At least she has reasons that make a lot of sense to her, but make a lot less sense to everyone around her. This is where the whole giant hunting business comes in, which is not on any grand scale in this movie. This is not a big budget blockbuster. The special effects in here, the CGI, is impressive enough. It is used sparingly but effectively, and of course it doesn't take long for you, the viewer, to realize and to notice that there's something just so very off about this fantasy realm. There's something so inconsistent about it. Like, it just doesn't fit somehow. Like, it's a little bit too good to be true. And so what we basically get is not necessarily so much of a will she or won't she be able to defeat these giant monsters, but rather a story that's much more intimate and much more personal and much more of a character study. Especially now with the help and support of a newly made friend in Sophia, who is a little girl who has just moved into this town with her family, who really tries to convince Barbara to come back into reality and to stay there for good. I feel like Sophia is like this very typical Avatar character who is basically a sort of substitute for the viewer, you know? It's like we are just entering this story, we are discovering these characters and their lives and their struggles, which they have been living for a long time, which they are very much familiar with, and with the circumstances surrounding them, and we are just discovering them, and we are just trying to figure them out for the first time. Which brings me to a sort of criticism. I feel like all of the secondary characters are used a little bit too sparingly. I mean, I know this film is about the main character, about Barbara, and about her journey and her struggle and her arc or what have you, but I feel like the secondary characters are so sidelined that it feels like they were given just one basic characteristic and then that was it. They don't really seem to have much of a purpose in this story besides just revealing stuff to us about Barbara instead of revealing stuff to us about themselves. I mean, the bully is here so that we can see Barbara being a badass who fights back. The psychologist is here so that we can start to think about whether or not Barbara has any sort of psychological issues, and etc, etc. And I just feel like at least the best friend character, at least Sophia, I wish I had a little bit more to do in this film. But on the other hand, I really love the dynamic of this film that's so excellently balanced. I feel like with all good stories, even ones with such fantastical elements, the sort of fantasy world and all of its obstacles are only fascinating when they reveal to us something about the people who are inhabiting it, about what makes them tick, about the battles they are facing on a day-to-day basis, about their fears and about their desires. I think this is an excellent film in that regard. It's an excellent film about responsibility, about fear, and about escapism. So there you go, I managed to talk about this film without actually spoiling anything for you. So if you haven't seen it and you would think you would be interested in watching something that's kind of like a mash between a Monster Calls, Troll Hunter, Welcome to Marvin, and Colossal, then I would definitely recommend this film. I really liked it. Thanks for watching my review, folks, as always. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And what can I say? I hope I'll see you again soon in another review. Goodbye, people!